The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to the Mick Baszuly Show. Brought to you by Insurance Doctors and RP Summit, putting money in business pockets for 20 years. Visit rpsummit.com. Now, here's Mick.
9:04 on a Monday, President's Day here in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, Florida. Welcome to the show. I'm the Mixta. Glad to have you here. I tell you what, it's crazy. We got a little reverb here at the studio, and well, that ended. I hope you didn't hear it, but you know, it's been a little crazy the weather here in Fort Lauderdale lately, as we're cruising towards spring. You know, it's hard to believe. It seems like yesterday was, it seems like yesterday was Christmas. The time is just blowing by. I don't know if you've been looking at what's going on in Canada with baby Fidel, but the real socialist, he showed up the other day when he was addressing Parliament, and I find it appalling. And I'm going to address it today because it should be addressed. You're going to find that Canada is not the United States of America. They don't have any of the freedoms we have. They certainly don't have the freedom of speech. He calls it an unlawful protest because they blew horns. Think about that. Because these truckers, all they want is rights, blew their truck horns, and that is an assault of subversion on the Canadian government. Over here, they burn cities, and it's called peaceful protest. St. Louis, Chicago, Charlotte, Portland. I don't know, is it still on fire? We don't see it anymore. The media stopped covering it. Seemed they burned it until there was nothing left. Minnesota, that thing was on fire. That little town in Wisconsin, or that city in Wisconsin, they burned it to the ground. And it goes on the list. Okay, San Francisco. And the media over here calls those peaceful, somewhat peaceful protests. They burned the church in Washington. And then criticized President Trump for going to examine the church in Washington, the oldest church in Washington. Not just a regular church. It's a church where 17 presidents attended services there every Sunday, going back to the days of Thomas Jefferson. And they burned it. And that was called a peaceful protest. How's that peaceful? Yet in Canada, they blew their horns. All they wanted was a fair deal. And they threw them in jail. They confiscated their trucks. They arrested them. They handcuffed them. They beat them. They hit them with horses. These are Canadian citizens. These are not subversives. And then the baby Fidel, Trudeau, he gets up in front of Parliament and calls them Nazis. They're nothing more than Nazis, as he directs that to the opposition, the woman, who is Jewish, whose family were in concentration camps during the Second World War. This guy's lost his mind. He's never had a real mind. Now, I call him Baby Fidel because I don't know if you, most of you who are older remember Margaret Trudeau. She was 18 years old when she married Pierre Trudeau, who was 50. They met in Tahiti at a resort. She was smitten by him and married him. Now listen, 18 and 50. If it was my 18-year-old daughter and she was taken in by a 50-year-old man, he would not see 51 healthy. He would probably be in a wheelchair because I would break his legs. That, number one, we go there. She had affairs. Listen to this list. And she wrote a book. She pulled no punches. Pierre Trudeau died, and she wrote a book that she had affairs with Jack Nicholson, Fidel Castro, who she called the most magnificent man she had ever met, Lou Rawls, you'll never find, right? The list goes on. And the Rolling Stones, especially Ron Wood. I mean, that was her boyfriend when they got divorced or she was the flower child. She called herself the flower child back in the 60s. She was born in 1948. That's the mother of Justin Trudeau. And if you look at him, he's 6'2", she's 5'2". Her husband was 5'8". Everybody's small, he's 6'2". And you can actually superimpose, because she would go, see, in the United States, we couldn't go over to Cuba. But Cuba was always open to Canadians. Everybody pictures, there's two Cubas. The one you see on TV here, and the actual tourist attraction, which Cuba is to most of Europe and Canada. Those hotels are operating and functional. People work there. They trade in American dollars and Canadian dollars. It's a thriving city on one side, and the other side is impoverished. Well, she was over there for years, back and forth. Pierre Trudeau died, but Justin Trudeau was born in 1971. About the same time she kept going back from 1969, 68, right up until the 70s. And, and he popped out. His father was born in 1919. So that's Pierre Trudeau. So you see the disparity here. This man is a socialist. They run with the Libertarian or the Liberal Party over in Canada. He's now the head of it. But to go ahead and throw your citizens in jail and to have them beat and their property confiscated, that is not the United States. You have to have due process. You can't do that. They don't have a First Amendment over there, and they certainly don't have the Second Amendment. There is no freedom of speech. You can go to jail if you talk against the government. Same thing in England. Same thing anywhere. That's what makes the United States so unique. Can't you see it? Don't you know me, Bert? This is what separates us from them and from everybody else in the world. This democracy is protected by a Bill of Rights that was written when time began. These laws don't exist on that side of the border. There's no search and seizure laws over there. They can come in your house. They don't need a warrant. They can search your property. They can search you. And this was a peaceful protest. There was no violence. One guy held up a Confederate flag, and right away the media jumped on it. The leftist media here in this country is appalling. They're disgraceful. And they get away with it. They hide behind the laws that are out there to protect them, absence of malice. They can say whatever they want, and when you sue them, they hide behind absence of malice. Don't care about the truth anymore. They never did. This is how it went way back when Hearst Publications ran papers. I'll create the war, was what he said during the Spanish-American War. Don't worry about it. We declared war on Spain after the incident with the Maine, which sunk in Cuban waters. And Spain surrendered immediately, but it wasn't, we didn't want them to surrender right away. We wanted to take Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. We needed that for our Navy. So we didn't accept their surrender until they ceded all that property to us. And then it was all right. The charge up San Juan Hill, you never read about it. Those were volunteers. They weren't backed by the American government. Teddy Roosevelt took those guys over on his own. And they had hardly any horses. They went over, they actually funded their own trip over there. And the Buffalo Soldiers, by the way, which were African-American volunteers from here, half that troop that Roosevelt led up San Juan Hill were African Americans. But you don't hear about that. That's how crooked the media is. This is what I'm trying to say. This was a peaceful protest. And the Canadians should be ashamed of themselves to let this go on. How this guy stays in power is beyond me. He strips them of all their rights. They're a joke. They walk around like they're incoherent of what's happening in the world. We heard all kinds of rumors about Chinese troops training over there. Actually training on Canadian soil. I don't know if it's true or not, but that was floating around. And to call them, when you look at it and you see people blowing horns, and that's called a violent protest. And when you come on this side of the border and you see just what happened here, how they threw rocks and bottles at police, they set fires all over the place, burned and looted stores. And then to hear our media turn around and call them peaceful, and yet our media said that they were violent over in Canada. I mean, how could they be violent in Canada? There's not one incident of anybody getting beat except for the cops beating on the protesters. There's no fights. It's not like over here. It's appalling. There are no words. It's disgusting. And the more I look at it, the more I want to get a nosebleed and scream, because what's happening around the world today is unbelievable. Unbelievable. On the other side of the world, we got Vladimir Putin. Rootin' tootin' Putin. He's surfaced again. Because of the Ukraine. He's going to invade. He's going to invade. We've been hearing this. He's going to invade last Wednesday, guaranteed. Thursday. He's going to invade today. And now we hear he's going to invade definitely this week. They keep changing the narrative. This diversion here in the United States on Ukraine is to divert the American attention from the failing administration of the Biden regime. He's failed in Afghanistan. Did we forget about the 13 lives lost, the pullout, the billions and billions of dollars of equipment we left behind? Now you want to send guns over to Ukraine so they end up in Russian hands once that topples? They'll last about 10 minutes over there. One crooked regime up against another crooked regime, and both of them can't stand us. The Ukrainians don't like us. They're the most crooked regime. You remember Biden? How much money did he pull from there when he told the guy, I'm not going to give you the $1 billion unless you stop the investigation on my son? He said, you're just the vice president. Well, call the president. He'll tell you. Call the president. Got him right on tape. But they don't play that. Why should we care about what happens in Ukraine? NATO's not going to do anything. They're useless. They're useless. The Germans sent helmets. The Germans have just about capitulated to the Russians. Maybe in the back of their head, they're thinking about the beating they got in 1945. I can't trust the British and French. Yell at the French and they'll surrender. It seems our best friends are in Poland, in Bulgaria, in Romania. Outside of that, who do you trust? Who do you trust in NATO? I don't know. It's enough to give you a nosebleed when you look at what's happening here. And this administration has not, I don't know who's running things. You know it isn't Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is useless. I mean, she's a joke. She's even separated herself from Joe Biden. She don't want anything to do with him. She wants to stay away from him. They're very rarely together, and when they are, they don't talk about it. You know, it's insane. And you actually believe this guy got 10 million more votes than the first black president? Where did these 20 million people come from? There were 20 million people more who voted in this election than all the others. They came from maybe the Ukraine. Very good, Freddie. I don't know. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. I'm the Mixta. You're here on 1470 and a bunch of other stations nobody ever heard of. I'll be back right after this.
Attention, doctors, car lots. I don't care what type of business you're in. Let's face it, you all need traffic. And nobody drives traffic, and I'm talking about traffic that brings you dollars, than RP Summit and rpsummit.com. Yep, they're here now in South Florida. They've taken over the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. Everybody knows who RP Summit is, because RP Summit drives you traffic. Let's face it, if you give me $1 on a Monday, and I give you back $4 on a Wednesday, the only thing you should be thinking about is giving me more dollars. Well, that's what RP Summit does. They are the best in the business at driving real traffic to your website or to your business. Because let's face it, it's all about getting bodies, getting people to find you. What good is having a website if nobody knows where you are? Let's face it. I mean, what are they just going to pull it out of the air? Of course not. Well, RP Summit's been driving people to businesses now for over 20 years and successful. And the fact is, once you hire them, you're never going to fire them. I suggest you look at rpsummit.com or give them a call for a free consultation at 856-424-7222. That's rpsummit.com. They will drive traffic like you've never seen before. And believe me, once you get them, you'll never get rid of them. You'll say, why didn't I do this before? It's simple. You didn't know about them, but now you do, so there's no excuse. Pick up a phone, 856-424-7222. rpsummit.com, the best in the business.
9:20, back on the show on this Monday. Hey, listen, everybody wants to get a makeover, look pretty good. I got a great place for you. It's the 8th Salon, right on 33rd Street on the North Beach shops, you know, where Fishtails and Blue Jean Blues and Candace Proctor in a wine bar. Gail Hansen, fantastic salon. They do everything there. Cut, color, curls, nails, everything you want. Go make an appointment. Make yourself look special. You got to look special in this world. Everything. You do anything. You remove your corns, anything you want. At 30, lose this calling me. What idiot. 3313 33rd Street. Okay, beautiful place. 954-491-4871. Everybody goes there. The mayor goes there. She did Madonna's hair. She did it. She is a specialist. Gail Hansen, terrific girl. Treat you right. The people who are in the salon with her, they work around the clock. They're very, very good people, and they won't break you. The North Beach shops, that's hopping over there. You got that pizzeria around the corner on 32nd Street. Mortorano's is over there. Pasta Solo, whatever it's, Solo Pasta. Then you got Candace's Wine Bar, and the 8th Salon is only a couple of doors away from Candace's Wine Bar. You got Kathy Vassallo and Fishtails and Scotty. And then you got Denise and Diane, the twins across the street. It's a great place. I mean, they got it all lit up at night. They have block parties there. And I got to tell you, you know, they really did a great job over there. I bounce around down there once in a while myself. You got the Greek Tavernier across the street. Fort Lauderdale, best restaurants in town. You know, Freddie, we got to do a restaurant show, I think. We should. But the 8th Salon, 954-491-4871. Stop in, say hello, walk out, look beautiful, ladies. I mean, you might even get a man. When you get out of there, you never know. Anyway, you know, let's get back to this administration before I lose my mind completely. Inflation. Your money is worth 7.5% less than it was only 7 months ago. Fuel is up 45%. Food, 18 to 38%. Did you see what a dozen eggs are going for? I mean, what are they? Rembrandt eggs? What do they call those eggs in Russia? I mean, it's a little ridiculous. I mean, right? Lumber, 46%. Houses have jumped 19 to 28%. Cars, 40%. My car is actually worth $5,000 more than I paid for it. My buddy was offered $10,000 more for his Escalade than he paid for it 4 months later. And by the way, there's no inventory, nothing. Used cars are premium right now. Okay, bread has doubled. I mean, it goes up 7.5% to 12% inflation. This is the worst in 50 years. Even that knucklehead Jimmy Carter didn't do this. Now, we had Ronald Reagan who came in and fixed it. He actually shut it down. Interest rates went to 22% in 1981, but he curved the inflation. I paid $17,000 for a brand new Lincoln in 1982, a Mark IV. It was gorgeous, white, red, it was beautiful. Today, a Lincoln is like 65, 70 grand. A Volkswagen, all right, is $30,000 today and up. It shows you how money becomes worthless. McDonald's used to get a Big Mac, a Coke, and a large fry for 99 cents. They had a campaign back in 1977 and change back from you $1. It was 99 cents to change when everything came out. Today, you can't buy a piece of Pez for $1. Okay? We are the next Venezuela unless we stop this. You're not going to be able to afford a house. Rentals are up. I mean, it's just abominable what's going on. And these people are coming across the border in hordes. This is an invasion, people. 2 million people have come across since he took office that we know of. Forget about the drugs. 2 million people. That's the population of Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, and Naples combined. That came over. 2 million people. And they're trying to dump them in cities all over. Florida, thank God we have this governor here. He won't take them and he send them back. Texas is going to do the same thing. How do you think that this happened in Minnesota with Omar? When the Somalis came over, they dumped them in Minnesota. That's what they did. You go from the desert to the extreme cold. That don't make any sense. But they dumped them up in Minnesota. And that's why you see people. And she's going to be in for a rough election. There's another Somali running against her, another woman. And this woman was a Marine for 10 and a half years, fought in 2 campaigns, was decorated. And she's a Republican who loves the country. And she's ahead in the polls. Because the Somali people work. They want to get out there and they want to start slamming. That's what they do. They're grateful to be here. And this girl was grateful, too. She loves this country. She's a flag waver. I saw her on a couple of programs, and she got a Silver Star in the war. You know, she 10 and a half years a Marine. Not regular Army, a Marine. All right? I believe she was a captain. And she's running. And she's ahead. Let's hope she wins. I think it's going to be a complete red wave. 38 Democrats have already resigned from the Congress. They will not run. They know they can't win. So rather than embarrass themselves, they decide to take a Swahitis and say, "Woof, it's been a slice. Let me get my pension. Let me go ahead and take some money before I get the last swoop of graft." How does Congress is $153,000 a year job? How does Nancy Pelosi have $350 million?
2 minutes.
Did anybody ever stop to ask that question? How these civil servants have more money than professional athletes? Did anybody say, where did it come from? The problem you have is there's nobody watching the pot. The FBI is in the tank. The Department of Justice is in the tank. Who's watching? Who's watching? They all protect each other up there. And I'm tired of hearing about the rank and file. Oh, the rank and file is this and that. And the rank and file is just as corrupt as the top dogs. Because if you don't stop it, what are you? You're guilty. You're guilty. You're letting crimes go on, and it's a shame. And now Hillary's back in the mix. The only way you're going to stop her is to put a silver spike in her heart. Because nothing, silver bullets, this woman actually thinks she's going to win. The only person hated more than Joe Biden is Hillary Clinton.
1 minute.
You know, and it's just crazy. I don't know. I'm going to go home and take a blood pressure pill the size of a donut. Okay, if this keeps going on. Listen, it's been a slice. It went all too quick. We're going to be doing a restaurant show pretty soon on Tuesdays, I believe, at 4 o'clock, and showcase all the beautiful places here in Fort Lauderdale. I want to say thanks to my sponsors, RP Summit. I want to say thanks to Freddie, to Gail Hansen, and the H Salon over on 33rd Street. And we'll catch up with you next week if we're not at war or we're not glowing in the dark. I mean, it's tough times out there. You got to stay strong. Believe in God, believe in yourselves, and don't let anything stay in your way, and always be yourself because everybody else is taken. I'm the Mixta. Have a great week.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the